Para 1982 tenían 2 discos en su haber y un magnífico apoyo de fanáticos entusiastas del metal en todo el mundo. Sin embargo, a medida que crecía su popularidad, la banda estudiaba su futuro bastante más allá de las limitaciones de su vocalista Paul Di'Anno.
Di'Anno was very much a punk frontman. He wasn't a great singer, but he was right for what the first 2 albums represented. But with Paul Di'Anno, they were going to be stuck. He was unpredictable and enigmatic in a way that was not acceptable. To move on, they needed a new singer.
Where I first saw Iron Maiden, I thought, this is just fierce. God, this is good. Wow. I looked at the singer and I thought, I reckon I could do a better job than him, though, you know. I mean, I should be singing for those guys.
I left alone. My mind was blank. They got him, Bruce Dickinson, from Sanson, a band who really weren't going anywhere. What did I see? Well, Bruce had a great voice, great range. Can I believe? He was more articulate, more dynamic, more diverse, a better lyricist and a better singer than Paul Di'Anno. It allowed Maiden to move to the next level.
Once you bring Bruce Dickinson into the lineup, you can see that transformation from a band who can get a club going, can get a 3,000 or 4,000 seater venue going. But with Dickinson on board, you know, you're talking about, you know, arena rock at its greatest.
Metal is vaudeville, in a way. The story, the theatre in your head, it takes over. As soon as you go on a stage, you can't be a little pinhead, so you have to blow yourself up. But if you want to be that big to somebody who's right at the back of the arena, you've got to take a real... and you inflate your ego to supersized proportions. It's supersize me, and everything is big, and you don't make a gesture like that, nobody will see it. Arms get flung, grand gestures, and the person at the back feels like you're much closer.
Con Dickinson al frente, Iron Maiden tenía la persona más grandiosa que la banda siempre había anhelado. Pero hubo un elemento particular que fue más famoso que cualquiera de los miembros de la banda. No tocaba ningún instrumento ni sabía cantar. Sin embargo, Eddie se volvió completamente responsable de proyectar la imagen de la banda y fue uno de los símbolos del heavy metal más querido.
Eddie was the original alter ego that could express humor and irony and aggression.
They put all their fantasy, as it were, all their image into Eddie. He became the personification of Iron Maiden on T-shirts, on photographs, on album sleeves, on single sleeves.
What you've got to realise is Eddie basically started out as just a head, you know, as a cardboard cutout on a piece of plywood.
It was more like a kabuki kind of mask and was shaped to look a little bit grotesque. And I remember seeing that behind the drummer. We'd do the set, and at the end of it, he had some fake blood gushing out in the mask, and actually went over the drummer's head. He was just covered in this red stuff.
The original Eddie didn't have long hair. They had to give him some hair so he looked like a proper headbanger.
What was the inspiration for this album?
Eddie. I might have never gotten into Maiden if I didn't see Eddie on the cover of that first album, and I looked at it and I thought it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. Just shows you how important artwork was and is to music.
I just love the fact that we didn't know what he is. Was he a corpse? Was he a monster? Was he an alien? Because every record, he changed to whatever the theme of the record was. Killers, he's killing someone. Peace of Mind, he's in a straitjacket. Power Slave, he's in ancient Egypt. And then on top of that, when Maiden's playing, maybe if the energy level isn't as high, boom, they bring out the giant Eddie to come on stage, and everyone's like, oh, there's Eddie.
There was something about the image. It was almost like World Federation Wrestling. It was that kind of larger-than-life escapism thing, and slightly ridiculous. And I think that's why a lot of young kids got into it.
By owning Iron Maiden, you knew you were consuming this art and this aesthetic that belonged to sort of a darker subculture. And that was very appealing. It seemed to say, you know, you think you're alienated, but you're not. There's 2 million people exactly like you.
Iron Maiden grabbed everyone between the ages of 14 and 22 at that time by the balls and didn't let go.
I was like, what, 13 years old, 14 years old. I used to sell Quaaludes at the Starwood, and I saw this band Van Halen play, and I was just like, wow.
If you want to talk about the Strip and creating rock and roll, nobody can recreate what they did.
Any band is always influenced by their environment, wherever they come from. Black Sabbath were from Birmingham, very dour, low-key, very working-class oriented, and it certainly shows in their music and their approach and attitude to life. But California, Hollywood, is glitz, glamour, glitter.
A 8.000 kilómetros y un continente de distancia de la tierra donde fue forjado el heavy metal, había un auge en un lugar seductor de distinta clase, y a diferencia de la situación industrial inherente a Inglaterra, este nuevo escenario estaba bañado de sol.
You can't get much more opposite than Birmingham, England, and Los Angeles Sunset Strip. You know, the bright colors and the spandex and the shoes and the boots and the girls.
Up to that point, heavy metal was very much about men. It was macho. It was standing on stage and being very forceful. Now suddenly it was cool to be a character again. Suddenly it was cool to be a little trashy, a little sleazy, a little sexy, as it were.
And that's what happened with heavy metal groups in Los Angeles. They took the essence of the music, but they glamified it.
Before people used the term hair metal, I remember they used to use a term called teeth metal. These are bands who smile. Van Halen created it. This was heavy music, but like the singer likes to be there.
I love talking. I love telling jokes. For me, this is just one big wet T-shirt contest, you know?
They just kind of summed up everything about the California lifestyle. They didn't go in for the trappings, you know, the witches and the mysticism in the woods. It's all about chicks and cars and good times. And they really Americanized heavy metal.
Van Halen se formó en 1974 y pasaron los siguientes 3 años puliendo sus habilidades en los clubs de Los Ángeles.
If you want to talk about the Strip and creating rock and roll in LA, nobody can recreate what they did.
I was like, what, 13 years old, 14 years old. I used to sell Quaaludes at the Starwood, and I saw this band Van Halen play, and I was just like, wow.
I used to go to see him at the Whiskey. I swear to God, I used to sit on the stage, and here'd be Van Halen flying all over the place like it was an arena, and there'd be 12 people there. I said to my guys, there's something new going down, and sure enough, Van Halen erupted.
En 1978, Van Halen lanzó su debut autotitulado. Repleto de éxitos en la radio, el álbum obtuvo disco de platino 6 veces.
When Van Halen 1 came out, everyone in Britain just picked up on it and said, have you heard this album? It's so different. It's so exciting. It's so fresh. It's so not British.
If there is any design to it at all, the sound of Van Halen is meant to spill over all over your turntable and ruin the rest of your records.
When Van Halen 1 came out, it revolutionized guitar playing. Eddie played with a style that nobody before him ever had played.
Anybody who just listens to the beginning of Eruption, just the beginning, even if you're not a guitar player, the way that